Hi, I am Samir Andharia. I am from OEM engineering team. I am a software engineer and I have been with Identity Module team since beginning of the project, and I've been with Dell for 12 years now. Today I'm going to talk about Identity Module dupe. So what is Identity Module dupe? Our OEM customers are already familiar with the .pm file, which is for iDRAG GUI interface, and this is one more interface that we are adding through the dupe. The primary motivation for going after Identity Module dupe was to provide or enable customers to do one-to-many update. One-to-many update would mean using one system, one Identity Module dupe, you could apply simultaneously on multiple systems in the field. What are the benefits for Identity Module dupe? Apart from one-to-many update, there are now more choices available in terms of system interfaces that customers can use. Instead of being restricted to just iDRAG GUI, where some of the appliances based customers or some of the security hardened appliances who wouldn't want to use iDRAG GUI, they can now use alternate interface by applying the Identity Module dupe, using the dupe through the OS method. They can also use it through iDRAG GUI, the Windows based dupe. So now you have three interfaces: the OS dupe, the iDRAG GUI, and the RE based one-to-many update. The lifecycle controller GUI is forthcoming. It should be coming out soon to support Identity Module dupe, but as of right now it's not supported. Let's talk about prerequisites. What else are the prerequisites that you would need before you can start using Identity Module dupe? So if you have identity modules already in the field, the first thing that you would need is the code that implements the Identity Module dupe support, and that will be available only on iDRAG revision 1.30.30 and later. So that's the bare minimum requirement. The second requirement is the Identity Module should be dupe enabled. The one that you had from before this feature will not work. It will have to be upgraded. Even if it is the same payload and same branding and customization, it will have to have the dupe support enabled on it, together with the iDRAG version that is required and the dupe enabled Identity Module. We should be able to start using it. Now let's talk about some special notes regarding Identity Module dupe. The first one is there is no support for fresh install, and this is intentional and not due to technical limitations. The OEM business wouldn't want to allow customers to do one-to-many update in mass method to switch from default Dell brand to any other D brand or rebrand or anything else. The second thing is lifecycle controller should be enabled. Identity Module relies underneath on lifecycle controller, so it has to be enabled. It cannot be in recovery mode, it cannot be in disable mode. Let's talk about OS dupe special notes. The dupe that we are using is standard Dell dupe that is used for BIOS, iDRAG, LC and other dupes, and those dupes rely on drivers that are already in the Dell supported OSs. So if you want to use Identity Module dupe through OS, you have to be using one of the standard Dell supported OSs. Both Linux and Windows versions are available in terms of list of supported OSs. The other note would be there is no rollback support. If you apply version N of Identity Module dupe, your N-1 version cannot be switched over by click of a button. You will have to again apply the N-1 Identity Module as if you are applying for the first time. This is true for even before Identity Module dupe support. So your iDRAG based .pm should also be applied. There is no rollback mechanism, and Identity Module itself, including the .pm and the dupe, are meant for 12th generation PowerEdge server. So let's move on to the demo. We have got a R720 here, which is Dell branded, and we have got a R620 here, which is also Dell branded. We'll quickly log in, and using iDRAG GUI, we'll make sure that we are at default Dell brand. We have the required iDRAG revision 130.30 or greater. So in this case, it's 131.30. And on the R620 system 2, we have the same thing. So the iDRAG version is supporting dupe installs, but we don't have the second prerequisite, which is dupe enabled Identity Module. Out of several scripts, we have a script called execute one-to-many Identity Module update. It should give out an error. It should not go ahead with creating a job and uploading the Identity Module. So the first one did not upload it. It said invalid instance ID with a specific message ID. The second one, system 2 right here, also did the same thing, invalid instance ID. Same thing would happen if you were to try using OS dupe method, or if you were to try using iDRAG method. So next what we will try to do is rebrand both the systems so that then we can apply the identity module dupe update. These are no longer default Dell branded. These are as if they have been shipped from Dell factory or from CFS. They already had iDRAC version required, and now they have the identity module installed with the dupe support enabled. It will give a message saying before dupe install. That's how it's branded, so that when we actually install the one-to-many PM identity module dupe, it will take out the message. So we'll know there is a difference between the branding for both before and after applying the dupe. All right, there we go. Before dupe install. Each of this system has a unique brand. This one is OEM ready for R620 and this one is Acme for R720. Alright, so we'll let the machine boot up and we'll get back to the tutorial scripts that we were talking about. The very first one is view software inventory batch file. As an alternate to iDRAC GUI, through command line you can see what is your inventory, what kind of version of identity module is currently installed. So we have a script that we are going to call view software inventory for system 1 and system 2. That's a tutorial batch file, system 1 and system 2. It's going to write into a text file that we are going to open up. We should see all the components that are currently installed on the system software components should be listed out. Right here is iDRAC called as integrated remote access controller and version string 1.30, the same information that we were looking at on the iDRAC GUI. And the second one is identity module. We need to search by identity module space module. The software inventory is listing identity module as installed, and because it is dupe enabled, it has its own component ID. The concept of component ID is to identify each unique brand by a identifier, unique identifier. So for purpose of system 1, the Acme has been identified by component ID 100244. Both the systems for this demo are currently at 0.09, and after we install the dupe, it will switch over to 1.01. Same thing for system 2, iDRAC is installed with version 1.30. So identity module is installed and it has its own unique component ID. Now we will try to do the actual one-to-many update. The same thing that when we had done it last time when it was default brand, we did see the error and it did not allow us to go further. This time it should allow, because the dupe that we are trying to deploy are with the matching component ID. We are about to kick off execute one-to-many identity module batch file. So here's the result. For system 1, it created a JID or job ID, and for system 2, it created another job ID. The same thing will be visible on iDRAC GUI. So for system 2, it's downloading the dupe from the FTP server. For system 1, again it's downloading from the FTP server. The status, whether it's downloading, can also be retrieved through a batch file, get job status batch file. We'll have to remember copying the job ID that we just saw in the batch file so that it retrieves the information about that specific job ID. So we'll wait for the iDRAC reboot to happen via the job IDs. There goes system 1 iDRAC reboot, and there's system 2 iDRAC reboot. Alright, once iDRAC reboot are done, we'll proceed with the host reboot for both system 1 and system 2. Script number 4 is what we need to use for host reboot. The name is execute reboot host system 1 and 2. So we got execute reboot host and not iDRAC system 1 and 2. We need to capture the RID or the reboot ID numbers for each of the system and substitute those RID numbers in the execute setup job system and 1 and 2 related batch files. It should be on the job input system 1 and system 2 XML files. So once you get the respective RID IDs, you need to replace it in the job input system 1 XML and job system 2 XML files, and then execute script 5, execute setup job system 1 and system 2. Check for the command was successful message. This is before dupe install, and it will kick off the start branding process, and then it will apply the new splash logo from the dupe identity module. With this host reboot, BIOS is about to ask iDRAC whether there is any new identity module update using an IPMI command, and iDRAC is going to reply yes, I have a new update, and then BIOS will start branding, and you should see a message start branding. Right there is the start branding. So this is the identity module dupe payload branding that is being applied right now. Branding information collected is the message you want to confirm. Watch out for the updated logo here. Now there should not be a before dupe install message. Right there is no before dupe install. Both the systems have iDRAC rebranded according to the dupe. BIOS is rebranded according to dupe for the branding part. For those identity modules where there are no BIOS defaults, we have done applying one-to-many updates using identity module dupe. And for those that do have BIOS defaults, that's a manual step. There is no script for that yet. We'll have to connect to each system remotely and go to the HII browser and manually do the load defaults to apply the BIOS defaults from the identity module dupe. With that, I would say thank you for watching. I would like to thank all those who contributed for the identity module dupe. To learn more about identity module dupe, customers can contact our OEM account team, or they can go to dell.com/OEM site, and they should be able to get all the required information.